Right, so Sharon Graham's Unite are once again doing their best Keir Starmer impression by mixing what appears to be a combination of authoritarianism and paranoia as legal proceedings begin against them. And nothing quite demonstrates that like taking as much in the way of union member subs as they can possibly muster to throw at this problem and build their defence, because money would appear is suddenly no object in order to fight this particular case and protect Team Sharon, together with decimating hers and her union's reputation in the process, acting the way they have. So what's this all about then, Damo? Well, this concerns the treatment of a chap called Brendan Ogle. And it's bitterly ironic that we're talking about a chap here who works for Unite, because when your employer is treating you badly and you're a unionised sort of chap and you kind of expect to be able to go to your union and complain to them about how you're being treated, but when your union is your employer, well, what do you do then? Brendan Ogle, if you're not familiar with him, is probably the most significant trade unionist, full stop, to come out of Ireland in the last 20 years. He was Unite's main man there, the Unite senior officer for the Republic of Ireland, and had been since 2014. So he basically runs Unite in Ireland. He's also the main spokesman and national coordinator of the Right to Water campaign in Ireland to bring Irish water. For a long time, water quality, supply and sanitation has been a huge issue there. Sound familiar? Long before ours ended up worse, thanks to the Tories though, and bring it up to proper EU standard. This is a guy with a reputation for going straight to the management of employees getting a raw deal, and where other trade unionists might seek more of a compromise or an easier path, he won't. He won't stand for people getting a bad deal, and it seems that goes for himself too. You see, Ogle had to take some time off, 2 years as it was, because he was battling cancer. It's been quite the battle for him. Maximum doses of chemotherapy and radiation. The man lost 4.5 stone, but he finally returned to work in July of last year, having beaten it, being cleared to do so by the union on a phased initial return. But if he expected to return to his senior union role, he was in for a shock, because in the meantime, Sharon Graham had become General Secretary. Unite attempted to force Ogle into a lesser post, one that would have meant a 100-mile daily commute for someone who had just narrowly avoided a terminal cancer diagnosis. He was also told he was no longer involved in the Right to Water campaign, which he'd been leading from the very beginning, of which nobody else was qualified to replace him over. Leaving the whole thing in complete disarray, including regarding a Unite-funded referendum on public ownership of water. He has refused the lesser role, leaving him somewhat in limbo at this moment in time, his former responsibilities not getting done, for which he is getting the blame, but for which he is also powerless to do anything about, barred from performing those duties as he is. But why has the union done this? Who are you supposed to go to when your own bad employer is literally a trade union? What we're seeing here is effectively fire and rehire, after all, isn't it? Ogle has also been prevented from accessing union representation, so he's been denied the basic rights of any trade union member. He's been told by the Dublin office of Unite that a new strategy is being put in place for Ireland that didn't include him. Why though? We don't know, because Unite refuses to comment on staffing matters. Others are asking questions as to where he is, so widely respected and well known as Brendan is within the movement, so it beggars belief Unite are picking a fight here with a man who's earned the respect of so many trade unionists over his decades-long service to them, and is widely credited with transforming the reputation of Unite in Ireland. Well, it looks like Sharon Graham is earning her own reputation in Ireland too now. It isn't a good one. In fact, so appalled are so many there that Unite branches across the country convened meetings in order to pass votes of solidarity in Ogle, and there was even talk of Unite in Ireland completely disaffiliating from Sharon Graham's London-centric organisation because of how he was being treated at one point. Graham's reputation in Ireland had already got so bad that she'd been due to visit Dublin shortly after all this blew up, and for reasons that have still never been made clear, though the optics imply it's abundantly obvious, she cancelled, rearranging her plans to a decidedly more low-key event subsequently. Brendan's story isn't the only one similar that I've heard, but fundamentally anyone in a leading role within Unite who didn't support Sharon Graham for General Secretary has been targeted for removal. Well, just as he's done for the last 20-odd years, Brendan Ogle isn't about to let a bad employer get the better of him, even when it's his own. And having submitted a tribunal complaint with the Workplace Relations Commission, he's taking Unite to court now too, with the defendants not just being Unite the union itself, but Sharon Graham is a separately named defendant, as is her ally Tony Woodhouse. They've been served a plenary summons, the first stage of legal proceedings, by the Irish High Court under the Irish Defamation Act of 2009 in relation to just that, defamation. Claims he was defamed by Graham and Woodhouse on 2 separate occasions in Ireland in September last year and May of this year. So not only had the Graham Unite machine treated Ogle appallingly as an employee of the union, but they've apparently been slandering him too, and Ogle clearly thinks he's got evidence to prove it. It would appear that Sharon Graham is pretty bothered about this legal action as well, because it would appear that no amount of members' dues is too great to employ legal protection for her, what amounts to herself and her mate, that is. You see, like many large organisations, especially ones who have a lot of legal business, as you would imagine a large trade union would, they pay favoured legal firms a retainer, so their services are on hand when they need them, and Unite in Ireland have used a firm called Turner Hamilton for more than 30 years now, and they are paid a retainer for their services. But the defendants in this case have chosen not to use them. They've decided to use a firm called Dentons instead. Dentons refer to themselves as the largest global law firm, and their earnings seem to imply their price tags match that boast, with annual revenues reported of some $3 billion. And you have to ask yourself here, why aren't Turners good enough for Sharon Graham when they've been good enough for every other ordinary member's dispute for the last 30 years? What makes you so special, Sharon, that you deserve special treatment? And why should members' dues be spent in such a way when what would appear to be a perfectly competent law firm is good enough to have been on your retainer for decades for everybody else? Does she honestly have no idea how this looks to people both in her union and outside of it? Especially in light of the fact Ogle himself can't even access a bloody basic right like a union rep at the same time. We have a union led by someone who is blatantly too close to the Starmer regime, despite what she says, because what she does screams far more loudly. We have someone who engages in the worst employer practices against people who didn't back her for General Secretary, even fire and rehire, as demonstrated by the actions Brendan Ogle has taken to the tribunal, and has suffered under, that's led to that. And also at the High Court, not to mention the fact again, she did this to a guy who had just won the fight of his life against a disease that almost killed him. Wanted to make him do a daily 100-mile commute straight after, once he returned for work, for what was in fact a demotion, making her just as factional as Starmer and just as petty, and frankly it's cruel. The harm to the reputation of Unite being committed by the current leadership seems to me to be right up there with Labour now, and Sharon Graham may as well be Keir Starmer in a skirt. Perhaps she should put herself on notice this time. Solidarity and best wishes to Brendan Ogle and his family. The guy's been a fighter all his life. He's not done yet. I wish him all the best, and we'll be following these proceedings with interest. But what do you think, though? Is Unite being run into the floor, or are you still a fan of Sharon Graham, despite what is going on in Ireland? Is this fair use of membership money and assembling her legal defence? Why should she get better representation than any other Unite member, though? Do let me know how you feel about this. Leave a comment, be part of the conversation. Thanks for watching. Hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Sharon Graham has shown some solidarity elsewhere, if not in Ireland, by advocating for her union to pass a motion of solidarity with Ukraine at the recent TUC conference, despite the Ukrainian government using the cover of war to water down workers' rights. She really does have a lot of explaining to do on all manner of things at this point, and I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.